Welcome to today's video. I'm quite excited as I'm going to try a for me new medium I don't have a lot of experience with, acrylic markers. And at the same time try to demonstrate these Acrylograph pens from Archer&Olive. I love how these pens come in this gorgeous packaging. When you open the set you find some useful information on how to activate, store and maintain your pens. And on the back side of that page there is some blending and use information. Next to the pen section there is a nice blending palette sheet which you can use to mix your own colors. The pens rest in this nice foam rubber tray and the pens themselves have a very beautiful aesthetic. The set I got here is a tropical set. There are 5 different color themes in total and in 2 nib sizes. I got the 3.0 size and there's a 0.7 size, I think it was. Right off the bat I noticed that the spare nibs that were promised to be there were missing from my set. They were supposed to be sitting in the tiny slot above the pens, which was a bummer to be honest. Each set comes with one white pen and a blender pen. The blender pen is empty though. It has no ink or anything, so it kind of felt useless to me. Oh well, it has a nib, so at least I got one spare nib. To activate the pens you must give them a good shake with the cap on, just to make sure the paint won't start flying all over the place while shaking. Then pump the marker gently on the surface. Don't press too hard as you may damage the nib. At some point you start seeing ink flowing through the nib. To help getting the nib fully saturated with ink, place the cap back on and put the pen upside down for some seconds on your desk or any flat surface. In general, these pens activated quite easily and fast. Just really have to be mindful of the nibs as they flatten easily with too much pressure. The ink is truly wonderful, bright and opaque and has a very lovely matte finish. The nibs can be taken out easily, another reason why you shouldn't shake them without a cap on, and can be easily replaced with a new nib if needed. Here I am swatching all the colors from the tropical set. The ink flow is nice and even and the colors are truly wonderful. Its matte opaque finish reminds me a lot of gouache, but unlike gouache these are permanent, so not water soluble. All colors worked fine except for the white color. The white did not impress me as it was not very opaque and seemed kinda watery. Even after some more shaking it did not seem to improve. Later I decided to activate and test the white pen from the Jewel set and that one was very opaque, so I guess the one from the tropical set was faulty. Also the Jewel set did have the 2 extra replacement nibs, so I guess I got a bit unlucky with the tropical set, having a faulty white pen and a missing spare nibs. Here you can see the white Posca marker does a lot better job than the Archer&Olive one in opacity. So now it's time for me to try out the pens and figure out how to work with them. I'm going to use my tiny sketchbook from Stillman and Birn. This first page was my first ever try out with acrylic markers, the Posca ones, a couple I bought a while ago. And here I have the line art worked out for this next project. I am lightly erasing the pencil lines and I have used a purple Sakura micron pen for the line art. I have no idea if you're supposed to draw a line art before coloring with these markers, but yeah, I'm kinda used to do the line art first. At least it will give me some more confidence before I start coloring with the, for me, kinda relatively new medium. For this piece I am going for a more anime cel-shaded style of coloring, so I start by blocking in the base colors first. At the time I was working on this piece it was freezing like crazy and we had so much snow. So I decided to go with a wintry color palette and use this nice pastel blue color for the fur coat. The color of the caps do represent the actual color very well. It's just a shame there is no pigment or color names on the pens or on the packaging itself. There is no light fast information on the packaging either, nor could I find anything about that on their website. So far I really love how smooth the color flows from the nib and how even and consistent the colors look on paper. Like no patches or uneven color tones, not even when you go over the same color twice. Every now and then you have to give the pen a good shake to keep the flow going and to make sure the paint in the barrel is still mixed well. Also, it's best to store these pens horizontally if you're not going to use them for a while, to prevent pigments from sinking and settling to the bottom and to keep the nib from drying out over time. Here I tried mixing a new color with a pink and dark blue, as both sets did not come with a purple color. I used a test sheet of the Winsor & Newton pigment marker to blend the paint on, and it worked quite well. You do have to work fast as the ink dries very fast. Same if you want to blend right on top of your drawing. Working and blending in small sections works best in this case. And I know I could have used the blending palette on the packaging, but silly as I am, I couldn't bear to make a mess on that lovely box. Here I tried the white pen one last time for the highlights in the eye, but it was so dull and transparent that I used a white Posca instead. I did try the second white pen a while after I completed this picture, as activating and trying the second white pen did not occur to me until much later. You can quite easily layer over previous layers with other colors. If your pen starts to drag or skip, it usually means the layer underneath isn't completely dry or your nib might be dry or clogged. It was when I started to layer the shadow colors on top of the base colors that I really fell in love with the acrylic markers medium. I just love how crisp and clean the colors look on paper. I have always loved working with water-soluble and alcohol markers, but boy, do I love the look of these acrylic markers. If you decide later on you want to blur or blend an already laid down sharp edge, you just add a bit of ink of the corresponding color on both sides and quickly blend those out together. Again, work in small areas and do it fast. Also, the medium is quite forgiving because they are so opaque and permanent. You can layer on top of each and every mistake you may make and never notice it was there. With, let's say, gouache, that is a bit trickier because if you're not careful, you might activate the layer underneath. But that is something you don't have to worry about with acrylic markers. I really like how they feel like a fast medium to me. Also, the amount of control you have over this medium is a thing I really like. You don't have to set up anything, just break out those pens and have fun. It is a shame really that there are no refills for the pens, as they seem pretty refillable to me when you take the nib out. Well, at least it means you can refill them with your own acrylic inks, I guess, when they're used up. And also, it's a pity these pens are not sold individually, only in sets. In general, these pens worked fine, but I did stumble upon a couple of problems with some of these pens. Like the ochre pen felt a bit dry and scratchy from the get-go, but taking the nib out and flipping it seemed to have solved the issue. And then there was this pretty muted pink, which started to skip badly midway through coloring. I guess the nib got clogged already, which was kinda weird. Because the light blue color for the fur and the blue color I'm using here for the background, as well as a darker blue I'm gonna use later for the background, I used those a whole lot more and a whole lot longer than that flashy pink tone, and those were fine. They didn't clog at any time, so yeah, that was kind of weird. So I took the nib out, which seemed fine to me, and dumped it in my dish of water and let it soak there. Every now and then I moved it around in the water, trying to get most of the ink out of the nib, and then let it sit in the water for some minutes. Then I took it out of the water and dried the nib on a paper towel, and when it was dry enough, I placed it back into the pen and reactivated the nib and kept shaking and scribbling on a piece of paper until I got the right consistency in the ink. Luckily, this solved the problem and the pen was good to go again. So now I am finishing the background with a dark blue color. I'm going to blend the edge of the lighter blue with the darker blue later, but first I make sure both colors are blocked in. After the entire background is blocked in, I mix a bit of the two colors on a separate piece of paper and added a couple of layers to blend away the sharp edges to attempt a gradient between the two blues. Then with a white Posca pen I drew in snowflakes and the cat's whiskers and some wisps of hair on the cat's fur and called the piece done. Overall, I really enjoyed working with these pens and absolutely loved all the beautiful colors, but I did feel there were some quality issues to the nibs if I compared them to the Posca pens that I've tried once before. All the nib issues I had with the Acrylographs, like fragile as in easily damage the nibs mainly by trying to activate them, how some seem to have clogging issues, is something I haven't encountered through my previous use with the Poscas, even not with my white Posca pen, which I have used for years on my alcohol marker and watercolor art. I have not once needed to replace or clean that nib out. While with the Acrylograph I had to clean or even replace the nib a couple of times through this one tiny painting. Not to mention the defect white pen and missing nibs in that tropical set. But then maybe these markers are not really meant for illustrations, as I noticed they are more advertised as a stationary calligraphy lettering product. So maybe the way I was using them was not per se the way they were intended to be used for. But all in all, I had a lot of fun using these, despite the little inconsistencies. So we reached the end of this video and I hope it was enjoyable. Also, have you tried these pens before? If so, would you let me know what your experiences were about these pens in the comment section below, because I would love to hear those. And of course, if you have any questions or suggestions, feel free to let me know in the comments section as well. Also, please subscribe and hit the bell icon if you want to stay up to date about my new content and to help my channel out. I'd greatly appreciate the support. And of course, thank you for watching and hopefully I will see you back in the next one. Have a good one!